playoff time. Well, they hope to change that narrative starting Sunday. Joe Burrow, talk to me.
I certainly think that the narrative surrounding our team has shifted. I'm not sure I would say most to prove. I would say that we certainly are trying to go out and win as much as we can. We're putting in a lot of work for it.
Burrow opens the season in Cleveland, a team he is only 3-5 against in his career. Compared to the rest of the league, Joe Burrow averages 249 passing yards per game when playing the Browns, compared to his 277 against the rest of the NFL. Stephen A., do you feel like, based on this history, that these first 2 weeks will determine their season?
I believe it will. I believe it will, because I have no reason to believe otherwise. And I want to state this, RC and DO. If the Bengals start this season 0-2 or 0-3, and they end up winning, having a winning record, but they're missing the playoffs, I'm firing Zach Taylor. I'm firing him. I'm sick of this. What the hell? Y'all think I'm joking when I say this. What the hell are you doing from February to September that your teams are never ready to play the first 2 to 3 weeks of the season? In 12 games for the first 2 weeks of the season, spanning 6 years, this man is 1-11. Joe Burrow is 1-4. Why? What the hell is going on? The season starts in early September. Why are they never ready to play? They're a 500 team in the month of October. They're 7-10-1 in the month of September. Why? Why? The season starts in September. What are you doing? You're missing playoffs by 1 game or whatever. You're losing to the Patriots last year for. And you scored 10 points with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase in the lineup. How'd that happen? Or T. Higgins or anybody else? I'm looking at this record right now with Joe Burrow. 1-4 record. 207.6 yards passing per game. Only 4 touchdowns thrown. Hasn't thrown a touchdown in the season opener. Hasn't thrown a touchdown pass in a season opener in 3 years. How? How? At some point in time, when you look at Baltimore, you look at Baltimore, you look at Kansas City, you look at Buffalo, you know those 3 gonna be there. You're looking at Houston, you're looking at Pittsburgh, you're looking at Miami and these other teams. Where you gonna be at? You gotta win. You can't start off 0-2 or 0-3. Not after you, Joe Burrow, you come on national television on first take during Super Bowl week. Yo, we gotta pay Jamar Chase. Yo, we gotta pay T. Higgins. Yo, we gotta pay Trey Anderson. And they got all 3 of them signed. All 3 of them. We only thought it was going to be 1. Probably needed to let go of another like T. Higgins, let him go somewhere else, get some equitable compensation in return for his services. Maybe not Henderson either. The defense stunk with them anyway. So what they going to do without him, even though he had 35 sacks, 4.5 more than anybody else over the last 2 years? You still looked at them and you said, yo, might not be enough. Got all 3 of them signed anyway. You got to win the first week, two weeks of the season. You just got to.
Yeah, you got to win, but winning the first 2 weeks of this season tells me nothing about the Cincinnati Bengals. It tells me that they've worked to fix some of the issues they've had in week 1 and week 2. But I believe
before you continue, would losing tell you something?
Yes.
That's what I wanted to hear.
If they lose the first 2, the season's over.
I agree.
And I know that feels hyperbolic. It feels like we're overreacting, but you played the Jaguars and the Browns. You played the Browns week 1, the Jaguars week 2. Mm-hmm. You know who you play after that, though? You play the Vikings, the Broncos, the Lions, the Packers, and the Steelers before you play the Jets. And I said all of those teams, and you still haven't played the Ravens at all. Mm-hmm. So if this team starts 0-2, it's a wrap. Yeah. If this team starts 0-2, let's think to ourselves, okay, we need to rebuild the coaching staff, because you know what you can't change? You're not going to be able to change the roster. Because so much money has already been sunken into the quarterback, into both wide receivers. Trey Hendrickson is going to have to go somewhere else if he wants a long, big, extensive deal. And so to me, the way they start this season only tells me who they are if they lose them. Because if they lose them, we have to move on from the Cincinnati Bengals as a team that can contend for an AFC championship.
I'm totally in lockstep with you guys. It also would mean if they start 0-2, Joe Burrow is going to go 3 straight years not making the playoffs. Mm-hmm. We don't have greats at that position in that league go that long without being in the playoffs. I think the last guy was Drew Brees. I think did it 3 years in a row when they won like 8-8 in New Orleans. Stephen, so the Bengals kind of like our 2-tiered team. We've talked about how bad the defense was last year. But the start was in part to the offense. They've been bad the last 3 seasons to start the season. That offense, that is absolutely sensational. In the first 2 weeks of the season, they're bottom 5 in touchdowns, they're bottom 5 in points per game, they're bottom 5 in yards per play. Part of that, if we're just being like transparent and fair, Joe's been hurt.
Yes.
Joe hasn't had an off season. Joe has been, it was the wrist, it was the calf. And so this is, in his words, the best he's felt maybe ever in his NFL career.
Okay.
And he played in the preseason. So that offense should hit the ground running and look like it did most of last year. Okay. So I do want to agree with the offense, but in part because of the injuries. I do think that the defense will be the focal point of what it looks like in the first week. To RC's point, if we can't defensively play better, and I love Joe Flacco, he's had a great career. If we can't play better against the Cleveland Brown offense and Jacksonville's offense,
we're in trouble.
And I don't keeping it real. I don't care if they're 2-0. But if they're giving up 27, 28 to those two teams, and Joe somehow goes and scores 30 and they win, it's still going to be concerning to me.
But that's why I was saying, though, winning those games doesn't mean that much.
What it looks like.
It's what it looks like, right? It's what it feels like. But the other piece on the games from last year, think about this. It's the fumble going into the end zone against the New England Patriots. It's Joe Burrow fumbling the ball and the scoop by the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Yeah. It's the pass interference late. And so it's how do you find ways to make those small plays, right? Yeah. The minute details that goes into wins and losses, because I don't think we thoroughly covered why they lost early last season.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that I'm clear. I know that if they win the first 2 or 3 games, doesn't mean that they're a lock to win the division or anything like that. What I'm saying is they can't lose.
Agree.
They cannot start the way that they have started for over the vast majority of the last 6 years. It cannot happen. I'm telling you right now, if I'm ownership and we miss the playoffs and I get to look back and we started 0-2 or 0-3, I am firing this coach. Because you cannot continue
in season, you're saying?
No, I didn't say that in season.
Gotcha.
I said they lose 2 of the first, 2 of the 0-2 or 0-3, and they end up missing the playoffs.
I got you.
He is not coming back.
Well, if they're
not coming back.
If they're 0-2, they're not going to make the playoffs.
There you go.
Because that means that there's something defective.
They're 5 games
with this team.
Yeah, they're 5 games after that 2-game stretch.
Yeah.
Whew.
Bengals favored by 5.
Or what do we trade for him if we're just are we saying sit him because you're concerned about practice and his ability to get up to speed, or because of the back?
First off, I didn't say sit him. I said play it smart, right? I said you got to understand what he can do.
And that's because of practice and getting up to speed with what they do, or because of his back?
Well, combination of his back and the fact that he hasn't been practicing, because I've heard Dan Orlovsky say on many, many occasions in the past, if a cat hasn't been out there practicing and getting himself in football shape, you might want to be a
and you heard it from Dan Orlovsky.
I've heard it from Dan Orlovsky.
Yeah, you're a great listener.
Damn right.
You're a great listener.
Damn right.
You know what? You know what you don't know, and you are brilliant.
That's right.
Because you listen to those who are.
Because I listen to those who know. And I steal it from y'all. Y'all teach me football. I get it from y'all.
Yeah.
That's why I love. I'm waiting for you to say stuff like that.
You're in the corner right now.
I got the tape. And I think I've proven I watch y'all. You understand what I'm saying? How many times have I quoted? I see you everywhere.
Yeah. So you think
taking on the double team?
You think we don't want to play him because of his back, but 5 or 6 days later, let's get him on the field. The back is gonna resolve itself in a week?
No, I didn't say the back. I said that he hadn't been practicing.
He plays defensive end. Go get the ball, quarterback.
The combination, you can pull a hamstring, anything can happen.
Here's my thing.
Make sure you play.
I say play it smart.
Who's the best division of football?
The North.
Okay. Yeah. So the Vikings went what? I think 14-3.
They were 14-2 before they nosedived the last 2 games. Right. The last game regular season.
14-3. You gotta let go of that. You gotta Elsa that thing.
I mean, they got their ass kicked, and y'all.
All right, Elsa. Let go of it.
Sam Darnold.
So you mean to tell me?
Your guy.
So the Vikings are 14-3. The Lions are 15-2. The Bears should be significantly improved. We're just gonna say, hey, we traded for this guy that's a generational talent, ridiculous football player, defensive player of the year candidate. Let's sit him because he hasn't been practicing in a divisional game.
Yeah, you keep talking that way. When you have a discussion for me, you can turn this way.
But you said sit. You said play it safe.
So what do you think? Is one game? Tell me, is one game going to make a difference? Honestly,
my thing is play it safe based on the evaluation of his back.